When you're ready, Daniel, you can pop the slide pack up.
Will do. There we go. That should be up and running.
All right, people. So it's 7:34 and we have quite an agenda tonight, so we might make a start. So on behalf of the board and the office, welcome to this second, what we call the ASC calls stakeholder engagement meetings. It's lovely to see you all here tonight. So I'd also like to thank Daniel, who will be helping to, or basically will be running tonight's meeting in the background, and of course sharing you some update work in the play while or participation space as well. So a lovely warm welcome to you. As always, please mute your microphone when you are not speaking, so we can avoid any background noise. Okay, let's pop across to the next screen, please. So there's our agenda tonight. So you can see we have quite a lot to get through tonight. So we'll try and proceed at a pretty good pace. And so we'll begin, of course, with acknowledgement of country. So Orienteering Australia acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land upon which we compete and meet. We extend this acknowledgement to all the traditional custodians of the lands and First Nation peoples, and would like to pay our respects to all elders, past, present, and emerging. Okay, so the purpose of tonight's meeting, of course, is to update the financial position of our organisation and to update you as our members of the work of OA on your behalf, on their behalf. So next screen, please, Daniel. Oh, actually, I seem to have deleted one. We need to do a roll call, so we might.
Yes, attendance.
My apologies. There's always a glitch somewhere in it. All right, we might start. Do we have a representative from Western Australia here? Okay, so we need to monitor if somebody from WA. Join us, South Australia, please. Interesting. Victoria?
Yeah, I'm here, Mike.
G'day, Chris. Lovely to see you, mate. Good to see you. So David roped you in to be...
Yeah, he was doing something else.
Yes. Yeah, so he sent us a message to say that he was unable to join tonight. So welcome, Chris. Lovely to have you here. Tasmania.
Yeah, I'm here, class.
G'day, class. How are you? Love your backdrop, class. Very nice. ACT?
Yep, I'm here, Nina, and Emily Stewart-Reid also joins me.
Hi, Nina. How are you? Lovely to see you. And welcome,
thanks.
Emily. Lovely to have you join us tonight as well. New South Wales?
Yep, Robin Palace is here.
G'day, Robin. How are you? Lovely to see you.
Good, thank you.
And Queensland?
Hello, Juliana Denoy.
Hi, Juliana. How are you?
All good, thanks.
Cool. I must say that the weather in Hobart at the moment is unseasonably warm for winter. And I think class would probably agree with me. In fact, I almost felt yesterday when I was out taping controls for an event on the 20th of July, I put sunscreen on because I was starting to feel a little bit, the skin was warming, which was most unusual.
Yeah, it's a warm winter.
Yeah, it is indeed. All right. Thank you, people. So let us continue then. Thank
Mike,
you.
it looks like Fee has joined us from South Australia.
All right. Good evening, Fee. Lovely to have you here. Welcome.
Thanks, Daniel.
And of course, we have some board representatives here, and we've also got our ASA coordinator, Tony Brown, here. So hi, Gail, I can see you. Good evening, Paul, I can see you. And did I see Andrea before as well? So fantastic. So welcome, everybody. All right, and Gary's here as well.
G'day.
An itinerant observer from Ballarat. I believe. Is that right, Gary?
That's right.
And Anna Sheldon's here as well. Hi, Anna. How are you? Cool. All right. Let us pull up the first item. Daniel. Okay, so we might hand over to Paul Higgins, Director of Finance, just to provide you with a bit of an update about the OA finances as they are at this point in time. So thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Mike. I'll begin with an apology, as I want to do. We don't have our audited 2024 accounts yet. That's not because I've been embezzling the funds and there's an issue, although I would say that if that were the case. We've been bouncing around between our auditor and our accountant. We've got a new auditor this year, and he has now requested the accounts be prepared in a slightly different way to the way they've historically been prepared by our former accountant. There are two main changes. One is the way in which ASC income is recognised in the account, and the second change will be bringing the Moira Whiteside Fund assets into OA's accounts in a formal manner. Now that's taken a long while to reach an agreed position, and now our accountant has to go back and actually make those changes, which includes restating the 2023 end of year accounts as well. So that's underway, and I'm not expecting that we will have audit sign off until probably the end of the first week in July. So I do apologise for that. And I can't even tell you where I think the numbers are going to end up for 2024, because there are those quite significant changes, particularly with the ASC funding. But safe to say we will be much better placed than our budget for 2024, which was a $100,000 deficit, largely due to the increase in ASC funding that we got last year. So happy to, we will circulate the audited accounts, obviously, when we receive them in July. I apologise again that they haven't been prepared by our AGM, which was back in April, when I thought they were imminent. We've also missed our ASC deadline, but hopefully this is a once-off and will be more timely next year. In terms of funding for this year, we're budgeting for what I call a operational balance budget. So income equals expenses, plus working off 120,000 of the deficit or the shortfall that we're in due to the ASC funding backlog. So essentially we've been funded in the past for a bunch of money which we haven't spent. We've got a backlog coming into this year, something like $200,000, and we're hoping to knock that off by 120,000 this year. When I circulate the 2024 accounts in April, I'll also do a half-year update as where we are in 2024. We're doing a good job spending the ASC money, although we never quite managed to spend it as fast as I would like. The other thing that's affecting us this year is high performance activities. All our teams in Europe, the cost of airfares, basically we're getting beat up by the high euro at the moment. We did allocate more money for high performance spending this year, particularly for WOC and JWOC, in the hope that we could alleviate some of the burden off the athletes themselves and parents of the athletes in the case of the JWOC competitors. But the additional funding that we've allocated has probably been more than eroded by the weak Australian dollar. So we probably won't be able to, as I say, alleviate much of the burden this year, unfortunately. Hopefully the dollar comes back next year. Next slide. Thanks, Daniel. I'll take questions at the end once I've been through these next couple of slides. Just an update on the Sport Australia funding, and Daniel will talk more about the Play Well grant process and our Play Well spending. But basically, historically, we used to get 100,000 per annum. That minimum is now 180,000 per year, subject to the new, I guess, performance-based funding scheme that the ASC is implementing, where in the medium term, our funding will be contingent on meeting our targets and goals and ASC benchmarks in relation to things like increasing participation, ensuring we hit diversity targets, that our governance arrangements are all in place and kosher as well. So we do have to meet those hurdles, but the good news is we're getting more money on an ongoing basis, which is great. And that's funding a bunch of projects, which Daniel will talk about, I'm sure. Next slide. Thanks, Daniel. So the Moira Whiteside Fund funds a bunch of participation projects, as I'm sure everyone's aware. As of the start of this year, 1st of January 2024, we had 1.102 million. And that even includes paying $91,000 to fund projects last year. I think the fund started, Mike, you can correct me, it was 942,000 a few years ago. So it's grown strongly despite the fact we've been funding a bunch of projects. As of today, the fund is 1.149 million, and they owe us for funding that we've undertaken this year about 65,000. So we'll be about at 1.1 million roughly where we started the year, despite the funds paying out. So that's all good news. We were behind by about 100,000 a couple of months ago, but the stock market has come back a bit. So that's good. Hopefully Donald Trump doesn't do anything sillier in coming months. Next slide. Oh, that's just a summary of this year's budget for anyone who's interested. As you can see, the revenue, about 40% of it comes from the ASC this year. State levies and state registration, which we held at the same level as last year, are about 215,000. Then other revenue, which includes magazine revenue, athlete contributions, interest, other state reimbursements for insurance and things, about 150,000. And then our costs are split roughly one third between wages and salaries for the 9 or 10 staff that we have. The ASC project out-of-pocket spending, which includes a bunch of spending on technology and a range of contractors that we have delivering projects for us, and then a range of other expenses, including administration, office expenses, and all the high-performance funding is in that category as well. So, as I said, an operating profit or loss of pretty much break even, and spending 120,000 on ASC backlog projects. So happy to take any questions before we move on to other parts of the presentation.
Thank you, Paul. Do any members have any particular questions they would like to ask Paul at this point in time?
Excellent. Looks like I've got off lightly.
Can I ask about with the Moira Whiteside, when you're given a grant or given money, why are you requested? Why is it that you only get 70% and the other 30% comes after your project's finished? The difficulty being that you spend most of your money beforehand and there really is nothing to spend it on after everything's finished. So I don't understand what that's for.
All right, thanks, Robin. That's a really good question to ask, and it's a really good segue into an explanation why it exists in that way. So I don't know about in New South Wales, but in other states, major carnivals are funded through the state organisation. And the reason we've instituted this process is that from a governance perspective is historically we have found it very difficult to get adequate compliance or adequate reports or acquittal of grants post events. So the board discussed this matter at length early in the year, and we decided to split the grant as an incentive for event organisers and their governing states to provide a timely and proper acquittal report of how the grant was spent. Now, in my professional work, where in a school setting where that's not an uncommon process in my education experience in Tasmania, where a grant is provided up front, a portion of the grant, and then the rest of the grant is provided post acquittal, so that you know that the money is coming, subject to you providing an appropriate acquittal report. So basically it's a step in terms of governance to improve accountability for the receipt of what is a fairly substantial amount of funds for the organisation of an event.
So you have to find the other 30% yourself, the money, you have to find the other 30% to pay for costings, and then
Well, you know that, yeah, so I would think every state has zero funds it has more than zero funds in their bank. So if you know the money is coming, then you need to have it such that maybe the state organising state just provides, if you like, a bit of funding, a bit of extra support if they need to, on the basis that the extra funding is coming afterwards. So, and also in terms of a lot of events, yes, there is a lot of expenses up front, but the accounts don't tend to be finalised until a reasonable distance post-event where the accounts are finalised. And that's been certainly my experience when I've been involved in major events here in Tasmania.
Thank you.
All right. So yeah, I mean, it's maybe a slight it's just a process. So it's purely about governance and about the requiring in good time. As soon as an event is conducted and the acquittal report is provided, that's a trigger for the release of funds. So in the bequest document, there's a time frame upon which the acquittal report should be provided. So I would suggest it's an incentive to make sure that you provide that acquittal report in good time to get the balance of the funds under the bequest. Okay. All right. Any other questions, please, before we move on? All righty, people. So, and as we did last year, we're going to do it a little bit more informally. We requested for a pre-presentation, but I thought this year, given that everybody's pretty busy and there's a lot going on, we just ask you for a quick verbal report about how you're sitting within your membership for so far this year in terms of your finance and B, just generally speaking as to how you're currently travelling as a member of OA so far this year. So each of the slides that will follow. So here we go. So the overview is each member provides a short verbal summary, financial snapshot of their position, and if they want to, what are their continuing challenges and opportunities? So first cab off the rank is Victoria, and Chris, there's no need for you because the next slide
Good.
gives you, so that David sent me a message to share on as part of his apology. So from a Victorian perspective, I'm happy to speak on behalf of you, Chris, if you like.
Good. Yeah, I'm happy for that. Yeah.
All right, cool. So Victoria's said that they had a positive financial year. They had a surplus of 42K, although they had no major carnival. There was actually a bit of an overstatement as they carried 20,000 of expenses into 2025. It's still a good result. Result of largely due to having 2 more dynamic schools officers in the role for 3 weeks of the year and still able to obtain some grant income. So David said they have a good financial outcome for Easter 25 and are expecting a good year. So there was Orienteering Victoria has established that their clubs collectively are sitting on financial assets of around $500,000. So collectively, Orienteering in Victoria is in good financial health. Having said that, of course, they're seeing slight reductions in bush attendance and an ageing volunteer base. So it also says our juniors are not in great shape. We struggled to filling their ASOC team. So the purpose of it seems like with Victoria that to use their money to boost participation and capability. So that's a quick summary from Victoria. And as this is being recorded, we can share the transcript of your verbal reports once this meeting is concluded tonight. So thank you. Let's see who the next person in the lucky dip is. Oh, South Australia. So either Fee or Rob, do you have anything to share with us tonight about how South Australia is travelling so far this year?
Sorry, I forgot to unmute.
Oh, that's all right, Fee. I do it all the time.
Yeah,
I better.
yeah, we had a good year in our financial year is the calendar year 2024. We had a good year last year because we had the carnival, the Easter carnival, Easter 3 days, and we actually made a profit on it. We normally just, if we break even, we think that's pretty good, but we actually made about $30,000. And so this year we're busy spending it. We've given allocated to each club $2,000, I think it is, for mapping. So they've gone away to do that, and other little things we wanted, like a maze and a few little things like that. T-shirts for the juniors, that sort of thing, is coming out of that money. We're also looking towards 2027, where we've got another carnival coming up. So we're sort of investing in that. Mm-hmm. So basically, bottom line, at the moment, we've got $300,000 in the bank.
Okay. Thanks, Fee. Thank you so much for that update. Sounds like things are going all right in South Australia. So any particular challenges you feel you're dealing with?
Sorry?
Any particular challenges that you feel you're
Yes, we've got the carnival in 2027. We've got to find a place which is big enough to host the schools teams in one group, and that is becoming really an issue, but we're working through it. And we may have to travel to 2 different sites, which may not be useful to people who come, but you'll know ahead of time that first weekend will be in a certain place and second weekend will be another place, and that will cater for the schools teams. They'll be able to be in one place for at least 5 days.
Okay, all right. Thanks so much, Fee. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Western Australia, is anyone from WA here now? No, so we'll move on, people. Tasmania, class.
Yep. So we continue to have a reasonably good buffer in the bank. So we've got about 200K there. The day-to-day or year-to-year financials, we're running pretty break even. So if we look at all our events and everything that comes and goes out, it's all around a break even budget. And that's something that we're looking at reviewing some of that pricing structure and looking at the entry costs for event entries, and thinking about participation around that as well. And that break even is also dependent on, so I was getting over the flu, so struggling to breathe. That break even is also dependent on state grant, where we get about 25K per year from the state government to continue to develop the sport. In addition to that, we've had some good success in the last couple of years getting sort of 30K per year in additional funding for specific projects around equipment upgrades and around safety upgrades. So tapping into some of those opportunities has been quite productive. In terms of the ASOC team, after having a really large group of juniors last year and only one in each of the senior categories, that's now evened out. So we've sort of got past the gap that COVID created and got quite a good sort of cohort looking through into coming years for compared to sort of the numbers that we typically have. So yeah, that's me.
All right, thanks, Cass. And I might share too that particularly in southern Tasmania, the series that the local club here runs, it's a combination of schools and public events. It's highly successful. So on a per capita basis, if you think there's 200,000 people in the Greater Hobart area, and there's often in excess of 200 people turning up to these events. So I think that could count as a big success for what's happening in Tasmania at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing on that is that there's volunteer fatigue, so that takes a lot to organise to have 200 plus people come through, and so we're very lucky to have some really key people that put a lot of time into it. But the long-term sustainability of that is something that it's been on for a long time, but it does worry me a little bit.
Okay. All right, thanks, class. Queensland, over Juliana, you here for Queensland? Thank you.
Yes, thanks. Yes, so 2024 was a bit of a transition year for us because we moved from block funding system of Queensland government grants to project funding, and the project money is a bit more difficult to spend sometimes. There's not always a good fit with the purposes of the project funding. Is not always a good fit with what we do. But overall last year, then we had predicted that we'd make a deficit of 40,000, and ultimately it was a deficit of only 20,000. And we anticipate something similar this year, but that's across a total income of around 200,000, of which 40,000 was grants, and event fees was 59,000. Wages take up about a third of our income, 68,000. Then to 2025 so far, we've had 7 state events, including successful championships out at near Miles, which is about 4 hours northwest of Brisbane. And we're currently very busy with AusChamps preparations. It only took 3 years to finalise permissions for all 7 events. And we're very fortunate to have more Whiteside funding and also funding from the Brisbane Economic Development Association. So we're hoping that people, particularly the grey nomads migrating, might pass through Armidale for the events that are on 2 weeks before the champs, and then come up through Stanthorpe for some high quality Queensland events the week before, and then we'll have the full week of ASOC events.
That's our plan, Juliana.
Yeah, very cunning. We saw it immediately. Sounds great. So currently in the bank, we've got 318,000, but of that, 81,000 is unspent grant money. Our membership's slightly down this year at the moment, 515 versus 587 last year, but possibly we'll pick up some more for AusChamps. So that's a little wrap up. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Juliana. Much appreciated. New South Wales.
Thank you. Well, we had AusChamps last year, so that was a nice income, and we see that income as helping us carry us over for the next couple of years. We currently have a loss of 18,000. That's just for the last month, because we're still raising levies for that period. We still have a reasonably strong balance sheet. We have 315,000 in cash and term deposits at the end of May. Our most significant expense this year was the OA expenses, which was an increase on previous years. But I'd say that was for the Australian champs. But compared to other states, it seemed quite large. I don't know whether we run more events than anyone else. We do put every event on Eventor, so we don't escape any of those charges. So we also have increased funding from the state government, which is a whole nother thing. I think Julianne hit it on the head. You've got to have specific projects, and there's a lot of governance issues that you have to cover, and gender equity and so on, that the state government is expecting. I think it's the same, Mike, as you have with the ASC funding.
Mm.
You know, there's all these things that you have to tick boxes for. But we got 50,000 for 2024-25 and hoping to get 50,000 for 25-26. But then after that, there's no guarantee of what the next funding is going to be. So we have a full quota of juniors going to the Oz Champs this year, which was lovely. We actually had to do selections. So that was very good. So we're getting a little bit stronger. Our seniors are a little bit down this year. And we're a little bit worried about that trophy that we're going to have to bring back, because our seniors are not as strong as they were in previous years. So yeah, we're reasonably healthy. One of our biggest expenses probably is our staff. We have gone from 3 staff to 2 staff. One is our admin officer. The other one is our sporting schools officer, and that has changed. The personnel has changed there. Jim has decided to move on, and we have a new person there. Our board is particularly concerned about the cost of sporting schools for our state. It doesn't seem to be, we don't seem to be able to recoup the funds to pay for that officer. So it is costing us quite a bit of money around that sporting schools, and lots of people. I was going to write to OA because there are a lot of our members who just concerned about what we get out of sporting schools as far as participation, increase in participation and so on, which is our focus. So that's my report.
Okay. Thanks so much, Robin. Just as just for information people, so if you look at the total participation across Australia, New South Wales as an entity accounts for 30% of the total participation in our sport across Australia. Okay, so there's a message from you from class to the.
Yeah, we have about, I think our membership is about 1,200 so far this year. So yeah.
All right, thank you so much. So who's next in ACT? So
Thanks, Mike.
yeah, Nina, how about you?
So here in ACT, we're fairly healthy, but I would say at risk in terms of our financial position. So our current cash assets sit at about 286,000, but that's forecast to drop below 250 by the end of the year because we need to acquit several ACT government grants and spend several grants. And it's looking like the second half of this year, there'll be minimal event entry income for us, but some major expenses, primarily those grants and OA event levies, eventual levies, things like that. 2024 was the first year since 2019 that OACT made a profit, and that was only a $7,000 profit. So we are once again on track this year to make a loss, unfortunately, but with Oceania champs next year, 2026, that we are hosting, we're hoping to kind of, cover off, even out some of the lumpy income and cover some of our losses there. So a particular problem that we come across when applying for grants in the ACT, and I'm not sure if this is the case in other states, but a lot of the funding grants are for like physical assets, and very rarely do they cover things like wages, which means if we want to win grants and spend grants, we need to rely more and more on volunteers, and that's quite a big, I guess, burden and risk for us. Volunteer fatigue and also aging volunteer base here in ACT. So that's kind of constantly a thing we have to balance, but we've had pretty good results with our ACT grants the last couple of years, no thanks to Phil. What else is in my notes? That more or less covers it. So finances are okay, but always a bit on edge, balancing entry fees with participation, because we can't hike them much more, but we're also not really breaking even on our event series. Volunteer fatigue. Juniors are looking pretty good. We've got a good ASOC team for this year, which we're very pleased about. And yes, participation numbers are steady, not going through the roof like we'd all love to see, but they're not dropping either. So I guess we can't complain in that sense. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Sandy. Because I know that from what I can recall previously, there were some concerns within ACT about participation decline. So it's pleasing to hear that it seems to have stabilised now, which is really good news. And just I just wonder, people, you know, we know that the Australian Sports Commission has changed its funding model where 6%, we have to expend 60% of their grant investment on workforce. And I'm just wondering at some point whether our state governments, a penny will drop for sporting organisations too, around the notion of volunteering, and whether there will be a change of thinking to actually invest in volunteer-based sport workforce investment. So it's just a little bit of a wondering I have based on your communication tonight. So thank you, people. I hope you all...
Mike, can I just add to that? Like, one of the things that we've just had to do a report as because it's June on our grant, and like some of the things that were in it, I wrote to the person who was asking us to do it, and I said, we're all volunteers here, and what you're asking us to fill in is requiring quite a bit of time. And, you know, like, we don't have a paid CEO to fill in all these things. And they just come back and say, oh, yeah, we understand, and there's a big demand and everything. But it's just like sometimes you wonder whether the grant's worth it, because you just sort of, all these hurdles that you have to jump. And it's really interesting because it's almost like it's the same thing for us as a small sporting organisation as a huge organisation that has a CEO and a few people who work for them who can do all that. You know, okay, but yeah, anyway, that's my little...
Oh, look, I understand exactly where you're coming from, Robin. I understand exactly where you're coming from. Yeah, I understand exactly where you're coming from. Yeah.
So I sort of agree with you about the volunteer, you know, thinking about give us a little bit of fun so we can employ someone who can do some of these things that you're asking us to do. So, yeah, I agree with you in that regard.
Maybe some political lobbying needs to occur. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. That was a really useful little overview, and hopefully all of you here present tonight found that a worthwhile exercise. So thank you so much, everyone. All right, let's move on.
Going to be me.
All right, over to you, Daniel.
Yes, thank you so much. So there's basically a lot of updates. We've got a lot working at the moment because we're in the middle of our participation plan. So it goes for a year and a half. It ends at the end of this year. So we're furiously working on all these different initiatives to get it completed by the end of the year, when we'll then create a new participation plan to line up with the OA strategic plan. But basically, we want to follow the participation pathway that we're creating for orienteering. So I've structured this slide according to the very first stage that we want a participant to be in, which is the explore stage. So there's three main areas that we're working on at the moment. One's the Come and Try It project that we're working on. So we've got David Stocks working along with a steering committee that's going to be meeting again next week, I think it is. We had to delay that. So we're working on milestone 2. So finish the research and the talking with all the different states. We're going on to developing the guides, resources, and all that. So look out for more info coming soon. Bridget's doing a great job with us creating the kiddo. We're in the final stages of finalising the program, creating facilitator training, and then we're going to open it up for anyone around Australia to become a kiddo facilitator. And once they go through that process, the club or the state organisation can apply for 800, 1,000. We're not quite sure exactly where it's going to sit, but about that much to get kiddo going in your local area. So in the next month, we hope to launch that facilitator training. And then at the end of the year, we're going to start working on developing this program so that it can go into sporting schools or ELCs. We want to create a little package that hopefully we can sell and then spread it at this younger age that's focused at 0 to 8-year-olds. And then the third one in this explore stage is looking at different ways we can engage with schools. There's been a year 9 to 10 project sitting in the background for a while. We've originally had funding towards it. There was a pilot that sporting schools did, but the sporting schools decided not to fund the year 9, 10s. And so we're still working out with the state coordinators, what can we do to help that engagement from sporting schools over into community orienteering. So we've got a few ideas and we can share that with you soon. The next phase that we want the orienteer to go into after they've had their first experience of orienteering is into that learn stage, learning those basic skills. So Learn to Orienteer with the $160,000 grant we got is, was it 2/3 of the way through now. And you can see some of the different things that we're working on and what we have achieved so far. One interesting thing is we're working with Aspect, so they've also got a grant, and we're working together to help make orienteering more autism friendly. Go to the next slide. Some other participation items that we're also working on, I thought I'd quickly touch on, is the Reconciliation Action Plan. It's currently out there for community feedback. Game plan, there's a new diagnostic module coming for clubs. And so this is what we're going to push again soon, because as it was alluded to earlier, there's new criteria that we're going to be judged by from the ASC in order to determine what band we're in for funding. So the more we can score higher, the more money we're going to get, because we're 2 spots away from going up to the next band. So game plan is part of that. In the next 2 months, I think, where it should come online, and we'll try to get clubs to complete that. It should be pretty easy. It only takes about 5-10 minutes per module. So it's basically sign up as many clubs as possible. We had the first participation committee meeting in May. So this is a nice milestone we've made. So thank you so much for working inside your states to appoint a participation coordinator. It's really going to help that communication from OA to the state level, and then also down to the clubs. And then also back up. So at the end of the year, we're going to have to create a new participation plan. This committee is going to be the heart of creating that plan. And we want to make sure we're hearing from the clubs, hearing from the grassroots, what other things we want to put our attention and therefore our money behind as well. So it's a really good, I hope, and I think from what we've been talking about so far, system to be able to have the communication going up and down, but then also laterally. laterally to the states can be sharing. We've also done a few live locks webinars and trying to get information out there to make the most of that subscription. We've also got some contractors. So these are people that we've got on board to help deliver some of those participation plan initiatives. So Liz is currently writing drafts of the guides and videos for marketing resources to help orienteers know how to use Canva, Facebook, Instagram, and Meta. We're also creating short courses for the Orienteering Learning Centre. You can see those there in the middle of writing. And Jim has started writing the controller accreditation modules that will eventually come on to the OLC as well. We've also got Nigel from South Australia join us to help, particularly doing what the ASC is requiring for us. Requiring us to do in order to get a higher mark for funding. So one, we need to record our connected participants quite clearly. The more we get, the more funding we receive. But then also, we need to collect diversity data. So we already collect 2 out of the 5 areas, age, gender, but there's extra information that we need. And so we need to work out a way to collect this data from our members. The more areas of data we collect, okay, 2 seconds. The more data we collect, the sorry guys, I just had an interruption. The more data we collect, the higher we score, and so then hopefully we can go up to the next band. So we're looking at a range of different things to do that, either a standalone survey, put that in Inventor, or maybe a different membership process on RevSport or a similar thing, and there's a bit of funding ASC is putting towards us for that. And he's also helping with a few extra things in data collection, particularly with a bit of research we need to do for Learn to Orienteer. Last one is the Orienteering Learning Centre developer. So Brody is moving across into this to really make sure that we make the most of the Orienteering Learning Centre. So about 8 different items we want him to achieve by the end of the year. So he started working on the first 2. So a few little takeaways I wanted to highlight was the participation coordinator in your state, get behind them, support them, along with the participation pathway we're going to put forward. And then also, if there's ideas, if there's pilots you want to do, if there's pilots you need to do in your state, do it, communicate with us, and then we'll be able to get behind that as well. One last thing I wanted to share was there's also one area of this new criteria, which is about asking you how we as OA are doing. And the 5 questions you're going to be asked, these are the draft questions, are on the screen. So they're going to be revised, but this is just to score us. Okay. Is there a problem? I'm going to have to step away. I think something's happened downstairs. Mike, I think you've got access to the slides. Is it okay if you take over? But that's all I was going to talk about. You're on, Mike. You're on mute, sorry.
You're on mute, Mike.
All right, thank you, Daniel. So I've actually got the slide pack as well, so we might just. Does anybody have any questions about what Daniel just shared with you there?
Can I ask about the controller one? I noticed you said Jim was writing the controller. Is he calling on actual controllers to assist him with that? Is he running that past control? I know Jim's not a controller. So I'd be hoping.
I can't specifically answer that question, but Anna's possibly here tonight. Anna, do you?
Hello. Yeah, I can talk to that. So as a starting point, Jim's been provided with all of the the curriculum and all the slide packs from the controller workshops that we've been running for the last few years. So that's kind of the starting material. And yeah, and the idea is that he's going to start developing those units, and as he kind of puts the content together, then that's going to come back for a review, and then he can proceed through making those like the components of the units there. Yeah, so yeah, there's going to be a sort of iterative process. He's kind of just kicked that off, but yeah, I dumped about 10 years worth of my controller workshop stuff on him, so good luck.
Thanks, Anna. Thank you.
So,
Thanks, Anna. So this is something that we've had on the, it's been sitting there as part of our plan for probably a couple of years now, at least 18 months. So it's great that that thanks to our boost in RC investment, or Playwell investment as it's called, that we're able to get this project underway. And so it's a really nice development that's happening on.
Yeah, it'll be very welcome. Thanks, Mike. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Robin. So
yeah, I think my main point about the way that it needs to be developed is that it should be in bite-sized chunks, and not. We don't want an online version of sitting through 8 hours of controller workshop on your own. Is my goal.
I understand exactly where you're coming from, Anna, because I once did an online course that I had to do as part of a work about career education. It involved watching 30 and 40-minute YouTube videos of PowerPoint presentations.
Yep. You'll never get, at least if you're in a room with people, then you can actually have some conversations and stuff. Like, you do not want to just be sitting on doing that on your own. So we'll never get anybody as a controller if we do that.
No. All right, people. So while Daniel's unable to be, just bear with me while I share my screen, and we'll pick up with the next item. Okay, so here we go. Let me just go full screen. Okay. Here we go. All right, people. So the next item on our agenda tonight is strategic plan. And as you may be aware, the current OA high-level strategy expires this year. So we need to begin the process of looking at what our high-level strategy is for the next period, 2026 to 2029. So this is the purpose of this little presentation. So without further ado, let's just minimize that. So the Australian Sports Commission has what they call sports governance standards. So 3.1 states the organisation has adopted, in collaboration with its members, a strategic plan with clear and measurable targets, which link to a detailed operating budget. And so with each of these governance standards, there's benchmarks between 1, 2, 3, and 4 that you score against. So at the standard 4, it says the organisation has adopted a rolling whole of sport strategic plan with an accompanying budget, which is annually reviewed and monitored. The plan is developed, endorsed, and implemented consistently and effectively by its member bodies. So that's what we're aiming for in terms of the governance standard. So we use an overarching 4-year high-level strategy in the form of what I describe as called a plan on a page. And then sitting within that, we have an annual operational activity plan that together forms an equivalent strategic plan aligned to this governance standard, and of course is linked to the annual operating budget. What are some of the things that the board has identified as improvements in our next strategic period? We need to conduct an annual review of this high-level strategy plan on a page as part of what I call a continuous improvement process. So a deficiency of where we're currently at is we've just basically let the current strategy sit without necessarily doing a review. We need to review the pillars, or what otherwise known as strategic priorities, that underpin the strategy when we consider there's an increased focus on governance, child safeguarding, gender equity, inclusion and diversity. And we need to create more explicit annual measures of performance against these strategic outcomes that sit within the annual activity plan that forms part of the overall strategy. And I ask the question, is there anything else that we may need to consider? And so let's just do a quick run through of our current high-level strategy. So we define a purpose, which is about enriching opportunities for fun, adventure and fitness through orienteering in Australia's diverse landscapes. We have an ambition to be an attractive and inspirational sport of choice for participants of all ages and aspirations. And our ethos is to bring our sport alive through inclusiveness, integrity and sustainability. So then we have our strategic priorities and we group these by groups. So we have great events, and I'm not going to go through these in detail, otherwise we're here. So it's a statement about what it means for great events. Essentially, it's about delivering competitive and participation-focused events, encouraging and developing our volunteers and paid officials and those who innovate. So performances, about trying to achieve results on the international stage, with a program that's connected to our community via a commitment to juniors and development squads. It's giving opportunities for every orienteer to enjoy the sport regardless of their age and ability. In terms of relationships, about collaborating and communicating across the community and beyond the community to promote and support the long-term growth and success of our sport. In terms of opportunities, looking at ways to promote and increase participation and for orienteers to grow and contribute to our community, whether they're a recreational participant, competitor, volunteer, coach, or administrator, and of course, organisation. Continue to build our capability with responsible sport management, good governance, effective administration, and welcoming and recognising the contribution of our volunteers and those with specialist skills. And so, in terms of all that, what are our strategic outcomes in our current plan? More people participating, a diverse and active community, and a sustainable sport. So they're the essential summaries. So some board direction. The board agreed at its meeting last Monday to engage in a process of wide-ranging consultation with their members to develop an agreed whole sport high-level strategy plan on a page for the next period. And that our aim is to finalise this such that we'll endorse this high-level strategy, a whole sport high-level strategy, at a general meeting in conjunction with the governance and finance workshop in November. So how will we do that? So here is the roadmap that the board has agreed. So we're introducing this process to you as members. By the end of this month, we want to form a working group to collaborate on the process of developing the plan to have both board and member representation. So following this meeting, we'll be issuing a call to you as our members for some participation, some member representation. Through July, we want to develop a stakeholder survey to ask our members, our states, clubs, individuals, what is good about the current plan and ideas for improvement. Early August, collate the survey findings, prepare a report of findings to the board and you as our members. Late August, develop the first draft of the new strategy. At the September stakeholder meeting, present the first draft for feedback from you, our members. Then seek wide stakeholder feedback of the first draft. From that feedback in mid-October, develop a final strategy. Late October, distribute to members for a final check. The board meeting prior to the special general meeting, approve the final draft. And then at the special general meeting, formally adopt this new high-level plan on a page whole of sport strategy. So that's the roadmap. And let me just hit the escape button here and return to Zoom and open the floor for questions. Where am I? I'm trying to get it all back here. Is that it? Here I am. Is that it? Am I back? No? All right. Okay. All right. Are you back, Daniel? Okay. Any questions, people, about that process? So as members, are you broadly happy with that process for us to come to an agreed whole support high level strategy for the next 4-year period?
Yes, basically. We're doing our own strategic plan now, so it sounds good.
All right, thanks, Pete. Cool. All
How are
right.
you planning, Mike, how are you planning to do the survey? The first bit that you were talking about, getting feedback from all of us.
Probably through an online survey mechanism, so maybe through a Google form process, I think, or a Microsoft form process.
For all members, or for
yes, I think so. But I personally, I think the board is pretty keen that we consult widely and get lots and lots of views and opinions, so we can get, if you like, community buy-in to the process. So, you know, when we talk about whole of sport, we want to try and consult with as broad a range of people who might have an opinion as possible.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if Daniel's back. He said, all right, so we might continue then. So let me. Oh, so I just got to. I'm not a Zoom aficionado, people. So okay, let me go here. Okay, what's the next one? So, people, this is just a quick overview about collective obligations under the Constitution. So, I'm just going to share a couple of slides with you. So, Clause 5.3 from C deals with member states and what shall they do. So, particularly Clause C1 says, have objects that align with those of the company, as stated in Clause 2, and do all that is reasonably necessary to enable the objects to be achieved, having regard to any legislation applicable to that member state. All right, so I'm just asking a question of you. As a member bound by the OA Constitution, have you analysed your own Constitution for alignment with the objects as set out in Clause 2 of the Constitution? So that's just a question for you. And then point 5 is provide the company with copies of its annual financial statement, annual report, and associated documents as presented to its members within 30 days of its annual general meeting. So we've received copies under this clause from Orienteering Queensland and Orienteering Victoria. So just a request, please, to forward your annual financial statement and annual report to the General Manager at your earliest convenience. And can you please also check Clause 5.3 of the Constitution to check for any gaps that you may have in your Constitution and policies to ensure that alignment against the OA Constitution as well. Okay, so that's it, just a quick overview there. Is there any questions about those few slides? So two requests, please. Just in terms of a governance perspective, just have a look at the objects of the Orienteering Australia Constitution and have a look at your own Constitution to see if there's anything that's obvious in misalignment there. And also, as soon as you get the chance, can you please provide RPAD with a copy of your annual report and your financial statement, please? This is fun. Whoops, what have I got here now? Bear with me for a sec. I'll try and get this sorted again. Okay. Okay, here we go. Okay, so now what I want to share with you about the OA activity plan and the work that's currently being conducted by the board and office on your behalf. So first thing I want to just share with you is a guide to the operations guide. So the board has adopted, as at its recent meeting, a systematic revision plan to review all policies and procedures in the operations guide in a rolling 12-month cycle. The good news is that, gosh, it must be nearly 2 years ago when we started the transition from what was the old operational manual to edition 5 to what we now call the operations guide edition 6 is now almost completed. And so the operations guide, of course, continues to evolve in response to governance and operational requirements. So we've brought in, for example, we now have a risk committee and nominations committee that are part of the ASC's focus on governance as things that have evolved in the last 6 to 12 months as well. Okay. Some important updates for you as members. So the board has reviewed what used to be the list of affiliated clubs, and we've reworded it as affiliated clubs naming policy. So this is a policy to maintain an accurate register of affiliated clubs that are recognised by OA as defined by clause 5.4 of the Constitution, that is clubs and individual members. So the policy then defines the official names for all affiliated clubs in all event management systems. So this policy is the point of truth that when we're inputting club information into our various event systems, that there's a consistent singular standard for that to assist in our data management collection. So under the policy, the general manager will confirm affiliated clubs of members each year, 2 weeks prior to the annual general meeting. So you would just receive a request from the general manager to confirm who your affiliated clubs are currently with you as a state sporting organisation of Orienteering Australia. The other one, oh, I forgot to put the link here. We've done some minor updates to the controller framework. So on the recommendation of the chair of the technical committee, the framework has been updated such that what we had was the former controller policy, which before that was an appendix in the competition rules, has been retired. And the framework has also been reformatted to align with the OA branding style guide. And so the controller curriculum under the framework is, I've got a little bit of a job that I'm currently doing to reformat and to check the curriculum for a couple of things. So because the curriculum was written and passed 3 years ago, just looking at things if little operational things that have changed within the framework. So that's a little bit of a work in process that's currently going on. All right, so let's now move to the activity plan. So I just wanted to run through what are the various priorities across their strategic priorities. So I'm just going to go through these quite quickly because you'll all get copies of this presentation afterwards. So you've heard that we've commenced the adaptation of our controller curriculum into the Learning Centre and that Jim McKay is the project manager. You've also heard we're also in the process of putting a course planning education framework into the Learning Centre, and that's a project that Brody Nankervis as a part of his OLC work is working on. We're also developing a little bit of some mapping learning within the Learning Centre, and that's a project that's being managed by Sophie Taverna. Okay, well, that should be a red. We have an intention to look at a risk management module to assist event organisers to improve event quality. That's one of the things we need to commence soon. In terms of looking for a plan for hosting a future major IOF event by 2032, so the project continues to proceed, led by board member Brett Whitehead. So we've had some feedback in some informal discussions with the IOF and European athletes, is a preference for a forest format event in Australia. So in terms of mountain bike orienteering, the project is still proceeding by the working group, and the working group is now looking at the possibility of hosting a World Masters. Andrew, is that correct? In terms of my recollection, if you're still there?
Sorry, trying to find the mute button. Yeah, I am still here. Yeah, they're still looking at running a world championship for the mountain bike orienteering. And there are 3 venues that they've come down to. They still haven't decided on that. Their biggest issue at the moment is just making sure they have the personnel to run and enough volunteers and capability to run the event. Possibly we're looking at 2029, 2030.
All right, fantastic. Thanks so much, Andy. Rules and guidelines of the Australian Schools Championships. So the rules have been updated. So Tony Brown, our ASOC coordinator, is currently looking at working on the guidelines to review and update the guidelines for running ASOC. So that's quite a considerable work in progress. And I think Tony's with us, and I believe Tony, you're working with Cam a bit on, who's the ASOC Queensland person this year as part of that process as well, I believe.
Am I unmuted now? Yes. Have I think you can hear me.
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Yes, I've been working on Cam on a couple of the items within the previous guidelines document. I've also had a conversation with next year's ASOC coordinator as well to get input going down the line, based on the idea that really the ASOC guidelines, which are not the rules, of course, are a work in progress permanently as we quality improve each year. So rather than to have a document that is set in concrete, but we actually find it as we learn from experiences each year that each state has different needs that they need to address. We need to make sure the guidelines have the flexibility to guide host organisations to work the way best suits them. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, yeah. And it should be nearly done, but there's a few bits and pieces that are sticking.
Thanks so much for that, Tony. And I'm personally very grateful that we have Tony as our ASOC coordinator, doing some fantastic work in that space. It's a particular event that many of us are very passionate about, and that passion comes through in some of the feedback and communication we have around that event.
Rob Tucker here. I just wanted to clarify something just a little earlier. Is that, in respect to the mountain bike champs, is that was that a Masters World Champ?
Andrew might be best to.
It's the World Championships for the elite, with potential to tie in with the Masters.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd have to say that the world body on it is extremely enthusiastic to have it in Australia. It's been very well supported by them, but we still haven't. It's still not planned yet, not fully planned.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Rob. And I must apologize for my typographic error in activity here as well on the screen, folks. My students love to pick up my typographical errors. Oh, okay. So we've heard that Brady's now working on the OLC, and I guess our competition and performance curriculum for our coaching curriculum is proceeding. Now we're on to performance priorities, of course. Finalise our teams for major international events. So most teams have now been selected. The later World Cup round teams are still to be selected. We've appointed a great group of people to work as team leaders this year. And I want to extend a massive thank you to the selection panels, both in orienteering and mountain bike orienteering, the senior and junior panels in orienteering, and the panel in mountain bike orienteering for their work. It's often a fairly thankless task to be on a selection panel. In terms of relationships, one of our goals was to fully implement our communication and social media plan. So we've now completed the implementation process. We did a final review of the plan in March. Liz has prepared a separate report later on for some of the positives that's happening in the social media place. The complete implementation of the website. This is now largely complete. We're doing some background work, and I want to thank David Hogg for being a font of incredible knowledge about historical data. So we're looking at sort of collation of historical data. And we, as you may have heard from Daniel, also about some Playwell related project pages. So the website data, when you look at the analytics of the website, we're certainly getting a lot more engagement through that channel than we had under the old website. So in terms of relationships, around the photography policy, the NIF safeguarding children and young people policy, this is, of course, it is a complex matter. We're examining ways to streamline the process within Eventer and the use of permission forms. It's just a reminder to everyone that photographic permission for young people, it has to be an opt-in process rather than an opt-out process under the integrity framework. There's work slowly continuing in the background to get a photography accreditation certification in the Orienteering Learning Centre. In terms of Eventor, we've seen some improved progress from Soft through the appointment of some new developers in the last few months. Paul is chair of the Eventor Working Group, and our project manager for Eventor Improvement has prepared a little bit of a presentation that we'll share with you about what is happening in that space. Of course, Daniel has shared a lot of information in the participation space, which falls under the opportunities. So the whole of sport participation plan, activation of the participation committee to support implementation is a really fantastic development. And I sat in on the beginning of that first meeting and expressed my incredible appreciation and thanks for the people from each of you as our members who are on that particular group. The plan is going well. In terms of Playwell investment, we've just made a new submission to the ASC for the next round of funding, which I want to thank Daniel for leading that process, and also Paul and ARPAD for their work. And we are slowly clearing the backlog of unspent funding. And I think we've maybe cleared, Paul, we're going okay with how we're clearing it. So there's still work. You've heard that the beginner instruction for everyone project is going well and in line to be completed by the end of this year. Also, the Kiddo project is going well. The Learn to Orienteer project is going well. That we've appointed Nigel as our data manager. So much work developing the scope of the project and a response to what the ASC's data charter and the collection of data. And as Daniel said, the collection for particular sets of data will improve our score with the ASC, when I guess our ultimate aim is to move into the next funding category. And that's a fair degree of self-motivated interest in being able to move to that step. In the second half of the year, we as part of our current participation plan is to develop the volunteer recognition plan. Inclusive practice plan. We're currently reviewing the policy in the areas of gender and diversity. And I want to thank Gail, our most recent board member, who's undertaking a review of our gender equity policy and doing a very thorough review. So thank you, Gail, for the work on that stage. As you heard, we're in the final stage of the community consultation with our reconciliation action plan as well. And as you know, we need to develop a new participation plan. So that will happen in the second half of the year. And we also seek an interested party such as the state or club to partner to take a trial case study forward for Trello to see if there's any interest in Trello. So if that's something where you might have somebody in your community who might be interested in Trello, to be able to trial or do a case study about re-engaging with the Trello discipline, would be interested to hear from you. In terms of great organisation, as you know, earlier on tonight, we shared you the roadmap for reviewing and updating our high-level strategy. Our integrity manager, Andrew Shipton, continues to monitor our compliance with the NIF. There's been some recent experiences around the country around child-safe courses and events with some unfortunate occurrences. So the board has discussed the need to develop national standards for child-safe courses at events. And so we're beginning to think about how that might look like. In terms of risk, they're always working through its risk register and identifying critical risks to the sport. We're keen for your input as to what you perceive as your own critical risk perception as well. So we have identified before that we have about 70 matters on our risk register that we need to address. And the board at its meeting last Monday night, I think, Andrew, we went through about a dozen. We've addressed about a dozen of those 70 items. So Andrew is leading our risk management process, and I want to thank Andrew for the fantastic work she does in that somewhat dry but unbelievably important aspect of governance in our sport. In terms of governance, looking to continually improve how we align with the ASC's best practice standards. So the ASC actually conducted a board evaluation last month. We're waiting on the findings, and we recently completed the benchmarking against the sports governance standards, which is mandatory for ASC recognition. So we'll shortly hear back from the ASC about how we did in terms of that benchmarking process this year and where we can, and that helps us identify the areas of improvement that we need to undertake. As you've heard, we're still waiting for our audited financial accounts, which will finalise our annual report. And I just want to reiterate again and extend a massive thank you to everybody who made a contribution towards the 2024 annual report, which ended up turning out to be the biggest, most comprehensive annual report that the Orienteering Australia has prepared. In terms of improving national membership structures, so the ASC data charter may impact on this. We're currently looking at some ways to better acknowledge new renewed members. Looking at the membership data, non-renewal rates of over 30% in some of our member states is maybe a cause for reflection and potentially a topic for our September meeting about strategies, tips or processes to retain members is something for us to consider as a group. In terms of our officers, so all our staff and contract positions are working to clearly defined position descriptions and are being paid in line with statutory obligations. The board continues to desire a director with HR expertise as the workforce continues to expand. All right, ignore that one. It's a bit of a last minute. All right, so that's a quick update about what's happening on the general front for you, just to share that with you. But I think it's important that we share with you, and you kept apprised of what the board in the office is doing on your behalf. Does anybody have any questions about that? And Daniel, you're back with us. Hi.
Yes, we've got a little one sick and he woke up vomiting, and our 14-year-old was like,
no.
what's going on? So
No.
sorry about the absence.
That's okay. Cool. Does anybody have any questions about that? I want to, Robert, also want to surprise. So thank you, Robert, for being here tonight as well. Okay. I think we're going okay. So Daniel, I might just keep churning on, if I can get this back.
Thanks, Mike.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Is Andrew Shipton with us tonight?
I haven't seen him join.
All right. So Andrew's prepared these slides, just a little bit of an update for you. So I would just run through these for you. So we're part of what is called the Safeguarding in Sport Continuous Improvement Program. So Andrew says that most work this year has been on determining the forward work program, as well as undertaking child safeguarding interviews for OA personnel. So the Australian Championships this year is under the Sport Integrity Framework, is a declared event, which means that the elite classes are subject to doping control. So whether the doping people turn up or not is something we don't know, but it is what is called a declared event. So there's been communication via e-news, bulletins, and high-performance channels. I received an email about this. So Sport Integrity Australia, their e-learning portal is having an update on the 1st of July. And of course, this is the main source of online training with regard to anti-doping, member protection, and integrity, including child safeguarding. All right, so the previous course completions stay in the system. It's just a usability interface update, I believe. All right, that's a quick update from there. Any questions about integrity matters? Okay, we'll continue on. Eventual project update. So these are a few slides. Paul, I think, is somewhere in far north Queensland at the moment. And he's got a Starlink connection. So he sent this information through just to provide you with an update about what's happening on the Eventual front. So the following change request items have been requested. So casual registrations has been approved for production and is going to be deployed sometime this week or Monday Swedish time. So hopefully by the time we wake up tomorrow morning. Enabling state membership selection when casuals apply for club membership has been approved for production, and that'll also be deployed this week. Date of birth to replace by year of birth, approved for production, and that will also be deployed this week. Changes to edit screens, changes to particular data entry fields within the event edit options, developed and in production. So there's some good news happening there in terms of the change request front. Adding documents to activities issued to soft, so awaiting an estimate then. And then there are what are called these EV items, which are references to bugs submitted by the event group and handled under our license arrangements. So there was a calendar filtering functionality bug between international and national events. That's been resolved and now in production. Entry overview. So there were some issues around service summary and clubs. Incorrect if payment was not made or entries are deleted, being resolved. The latest version is testing. There was a bug allowing entry to an event without the opportunity to pay. So soft has been advised of that particular bug. Event or performance issue. You may or may not be aware that Soft in their infinite wisdom changed, put us onto a different server a few months ago, which seemed to impact on our performance. So the Australian Eventor is now on the same server used by the Swedish and Norwegian Eventor. So performance appears to have improved, although when I was looking on Eventor today, it took about 15 seconds to load. So there's some further testing being done. So Ian Rathbone did a whole lot of testing, which confirmed the degradation in performance, which we then alerted Soft to the issue. End of membership year, there's an event entry issue, so Soft have been involved. There was a bug around some classes not getting uploaded when uploading results for multi-race events, and that was fixed before the Australian 3 days. Okay. So the Soft lead developer at the time of the commencement of our event or improvement project in 2023 resigned and left Soft in April. So prior to his departure, though, the Soft, or the Swedish Federation's owners of Eventor, had employed an additional resource or an additional developer. And earlier this month, the Soft also employed an additional developer who, according to Paul, has already impressed the working group with the speed and quality of his work. So it seems like that we're back on track in terms of their improvement requests with regard to Eventor. I also, on behalf of the board, wrote to the Swedish Federation to express our concerns as the license holder as to the various performance issues and the lack of response around our request for improvements. Little bit of a note, Eventor on a mobile device. So we've discovered that probably is obvious to you, but it's something that I didn't realise until a while back, that it's hopeless for registration purposes on a mobile device in that the menu is hidden. So what we've done as a bit of a workaround, we've modified the Eventor page on the OA website to act as a landing page to access Eventor on a mobile device. So if you go to the link, like go to the Eventor page on the website, you'll see there's, and I'll share you a couple of screenshots. So it's recommended to use this page as a starting point for accessing Eventor for new users to register to access Eventor on a mobile device. So this is what it looks like on a mobile phone. So at Orienteering ASN events, Eventor. So you can see about and then access Eventor. You've got two buttons that take you to either register, log in, or straight to the event calendar as a landing page for Eventor. And so when you hit the register space, that's what the Register Me page looks like on a mobile device. So hopefully just by doing that simple thing, if a new user is trying to register in Eventor, that might be a little way of easing a little bit of the initial pain about accessing via a mobile device, particularly in an event when someone decides they might like to register in Eventor. All right, any questions around that, people?
All I can say is well done on that matter.
All right, thanks, Rob. Yeah, look, it's a continuing work in progress. Personally, I'd love to see Soft do a complete interface update of Eventor because it's an aging interface, and I teach usability design as a part of one of the courses I teach in my work, and we all know that usability is not great. It's the back end is quite robust, I think, from a developer's perspective, but there's certainly some usability, old aging technology usability issues. All right, we might move on. So we're getting towards the end, folks. A little bit of an update from Liz. So a whole lot of content. So Liz has been putting a lot of work into promoting this time in 3 days. The new OA promotional video, which was produced as a part of a grant by the people at Newcastle, which I think are fantastic, about national team announcements. So some marketing guidelines are in the works. So written and video guides for OA and SSOs to use. So a guide, as Daniel alluded, how to use Canva to prepare content around using social media, particularly the Facebook and Instagram platforms, how to navigate the Meta Business Suite, and also Meta Ads. And a little bit of data. So for April and May, in terms of the views, reach, and content interactions, with some big increases in numbers there, and also on Instagram. So yeah, so the Facebook was due to the Australian 3-day coverage, which had a lot of engagement, and that the two peaks, or the peaks in Instagram, are around the Athlete of the Year post and the WOT team announcement. And Liz has just made the note, knowing what content interests our audience, we can cater to these interests in the future when making similar posts. So looking at which particular posts, which particular news items, by tracking that and seeing where the real big peaks are, is helped us to navigate, and particularly to really engage with our audience.
So, Mike, young people use Instagram and old people use Facebook. Is that what it's indicating?
Broadly speaking.
That is correct.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
All right. Maybe I'm a cross-generational person because I'm a big user of Instagram, because I'm a visual person. I like looking at pictures. Yeah, but broadly speaking, that seems to be, in terms of those two Meta products, there tends to be a younger demographic on Instagram and a more mature demographic on Facebook. Okay. So we're up to general business, and hopefully there's nothing that I've missed. Board members, if that are here, have I missed anything important that we need to share with our members?
Not that I can think of, Mark.
All right, thanks, Andrew.
No.
All right, thanks, Rob. All righty, so let's go around the table. Nina, anything that you have that you'd like to raise?
No, thanks, Mark. Nothing.
All right, thanks. Robin, anything?
No, I think I've said enough tonight. Thanks, Mike.
It's all right. It's always great to hear opinions, Robin. Don't be afraid of having plenty to say. It's good. Julianne, anything from Queensland?
No, thanks very much, Mike.
All right, thank you. Fee and Rob, anything from South Australia?
No, thanks, Mike, and thanks for your efforts. It's commendable.
All right, thank you. Class, anything from you?
Nothing from me. Thanks a lot.
All right, thanks, guys. And Chris, anything from Victoria?
No, nothing to add.
All right, cool. All right, so our next meeting, people, is on Monday, September 15. Please add your calendars, and let me just stop this and wind up with a couple of concluding remarks. So, people, I hope you've found this evening to be informative for you, to update you about what is happening and across the spectrum of both the board and the office working on your behalf. And I really want to reiterate that the board and the office work for you. And so please let us know if there's anything that you think we can do better, anything that you think we might like to do on your behalf that can be beneficial for you and everyone else. Please let us know, because we as I said, we're really here to work for you. So a couple of other last little things. Shameless plug. Make sure that you think about coming to the Australian Championships. This is at Easter next year, because I can tell you there's an event the Sunday after Easter on possibly one of the most challenging bits of orienteering terrain in Tasmania, that being the eastern end of Pittwater Dunes, where there's a completely updated LiDAR-driven map that will give you a wonderful, wonderful orienteering experience. So there's a shameless self-interested plug, because I remade the map and it was fun.
We're all booked. We're all booked already, Mike.
Excellent, cool. So also, people, let us look forward to what promises to be a fantastic Australian Championships in Queensland in late September, October, and we will probably hear more about that when we we meet in September. Also want to thank Daniel for his work in supporting the conduct of this meeting tonight. I want to thank all of you for joining tonight. And I also want to thank the board members and Robert, our company secretary, for also joining tonight. And also want to thank a couple of special guests. Is Gary still here? Is he disappeared like a psychedelic warlord? He's gone. And also to Tony Brown, who joined tonight as our ASOC coordinator. So thank you so much. Thank you, Paul, for your financial update tonight as well. And so without further ado, it's time to say fare ye well and good night. I think we've done well. That slide pack had over 90 slides in it. So what we'll do, we will check it. And Emily, I can see your hand up. We will check it and I will ask RPAD to distribute it tomorrow for you as well. Cool. Emily, question?
No, it wasn't a question. I was just celebrating the meeting. Thanks.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you. Lovely to join us too. Is this your first stakeholder meeting?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I hope you found it interesting, Emily, and thank you so much for joining us. And also thank you, Chris, for joining on behalf of Orienteering Victoria. I think that was your meeting debut as well, Chris?
Yep, first one.
All right. And Nina, is this your first one as president of OA?
I did join the AGM earlier in the year.
That's right, of course, yeah. All right, people. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll talk soon. We'll be in touch in terms of forming the working group to take the strategic plan work forward to you shortly as well. So thank you, folks. Good night and take care.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Thanks, Mike.
Good night.
Thanks so much, Daniel, for your